Hi, welcome to the Women in Entrepreneurship Challenges and Opportunities workshop. My name is Graham Nichols. I am the Director of Make a Dream Publishing Limited. I created the project, coordinating it and developing workshops for the project as part of the final output with Erasmus+. Social economy considered to have three sectors: business private sector, which is privately owned, profit motivated; public sector, which is owned by the state on behalf of the people of the state; or the social economy embraces a wide range of community, voluntary and not-for-profit activities. Sometimes a reference to the fourth sector, the informal sector, where informal exchanges take place between family and friends. So it becomes a family business. So the social sector can be the third sector, voluntary community sector, usually made up of a lot of NGOs or foundations. But really, these are the target of this workshop. Those who want to create a social enterprise or create a business for themselves, or they want to simply create a new project with partners from locally or regionally or internationally, such as in Erasmus+. So the social economy, formerly the third sector, social innovation happens within the third sector, or the voluntary community sector. The 6 key stages of social innovation. So 6 key stages in creating a social enterprise, a new project, even a new business. These are prompts, proposals, prototypes, sustaining, scaling and diffusion, and systemic change. What I will do is go through each of these elements stage by stage. These stages are not always sequential. Think of them as overlapping with distinct cultures and skills, but essentially they're a framework. If you can cover all these elements, then you'll be well on the way to actually having something that you can take forward as a project or as an enterprise or a business. So the prompts, first stage. This is diagnosing the challenge, not the problem. Frame the question to tackle the root cause. So go beyond the symptoms, which is normally our first response. An example of this I can give you on a project I've completed in the past is that deliberate self-harm was an issue, not just in the UK, but in a lot of countries across the EU or even globally. Well, when I did a lot of research, I found that alexithymia underpinned a lot of the symptoms. So as alexithymia was the challenge, and I created a project to tackle alexithymia, which is an inability to express feelings or emotions. So once you understand what is underpinning it, you can actually deal with that and then address the symptoms as an end result. But essentially, tackle the root cause. So tackle the real reasons. What is it that's making something happen or creating the challenge? Overcome false barriers. It's like somebody tells you, oh, you never do it. Oh, you can't do that, it's impossible. Have a look around and overcome these false barriers that are put there. The first hurdle you have to jump over, really, is criticism from others who know absolutely nothing about the subject or what it is you're really trying to do, and just trying to say, you can't do it. Talk to people, network, communicate. Networking and communication are really key skills and really key elements that underpin all of the 6 stages. Mapping and gap identification. Find out what else is out there, who is doing what is working, what is not working. And that way you might find a gap in the services that are being provided. So there are many challenges, which I like to call them challenges, not problems, that prompt innovation, that demand action on an issue, or that mobilize a belief that a course of action is possible. So the community is researching themselves to identify their own needs and solutions to those needs. It's based on the premise that people are best placed to identify their own needs. So instead of coming from the top down, we believe this is what you need and we're going to give you this. Rather, need to have a bottom-up approach, ask people what it is they need, what it is they're having an issue with, what their challenges they face, and then developing something based on what they're saying. So again, it's research, communities, networking, and communication. So having the prompts, having had a look around, talking to people, networking, we can have a look at proposals and solutions. These can include, or quite often include, all of these elements: user-led design, redesigning services, engagement of ex-users, web-based tools. Now, when I say engagement of ex-users and user-led design, these are people with lived experience of what it is or what their challenges are. To have them on board in focus groups is a very important step in creating any sort of project or any sort of enterprise. Exchange visits. Lifelong learning program in Europe used to be very good at this, but they stopped doing the exchange visits. But what you can do if you're visiting or you're in a project partnership and you're meeting up, set aside some time to just do some brainstorming, to look for different ideas. You say, I've got this challenge. Does anybody else have the same thing? How can we deal with it? And so user visits, the networking, to promote ideas that help you deal with or create a solution. So it gives confidence for calls to action because you're talking to like-minded people who are facing the same issue. So it's common when you have a group of people together who are like-minded for transfer of knowledge and ideas. Networking is something the social economy sector does well, or it needs to, if it's going to survive in the 21st century. If you're ever going to a conference, an international conference, for example, what I try to do if I go to any conference at all is to speak with 5 people I've never spoken with before. So if I can speak to 5 people about something during the day, then I can tick that box because I will learn something new, get contact information, contact them after the event, and you don't know where that's going to lead. For me, it's led to about 6 or 7 different projects just by meeting people at different international conferences. Pilots. Now we're looking at feasibility study, delivery model, challenges, getting finance, and what resources are available. A feasibility study, a business plan is essential, so you can see how much it's going to cost, when you're going to be spending the money. A cash flow forecast as part of the feasibility study is always recommended. Delivery model, how are you going to deliver the solution, and what resources will you need? Will it be face-to-face? Will it be online? What are the challenges you're likely to be facing? What the solutions will you find to the challenges? And getting finance. How are you going to support yourself while you carry out the pilot project? The driving forces for pilot projects are speed, keeping the cost low, tangibility, evaluation. It's important to get feedback from everybody who participates in the pilot project, or even in the stages 1 and 2. Get their feedback. They will tell you what it is you really need. They will also help with the delivery model and also help to keep the costs low if you can get volunteers on board to take part So it's part of a learning process. Tangibility, what are the real results? How are you going to demonstrate the real results? Make sure you know how you're going to demonstrate this. It's going to be time bound, so you know how long it's going to take to deliver. But it must be able to get in place very quickly. Otherwise you lose momentum. So funding, you get EU funding, fundraising, direct commissioning and tendering. So really it's having a look and seeing what else or who else can provide the funds to get you up and running. If you go or GoFundMe, for example, on the internet, that's been a source of funding. Also commissioners and tendering for pilot projects, so they can just test the water and see what works. And if it does work, then you can always upscale later and get funding to sustain the project. So sustainability, very important to address, to look at, so you have a clear idea how the project will generate income to cover costs, who is going to pay for what is on offer once the pilot is over, mainstreaming, getting commissioners on board early on. So if you're going to want to look at funders or somebody to support the project after the pilot, then you really need to get stakeholders involved who will contribute to getting it mainstreamed. Scaling and diffusion. Nearly every challenge has been overcome by someone somewhere. The challenge in the 21st century is to find out what works and scale it up. This is Bill Clinton. So scaling up is quite an easy concept to grasp. So once you have your pilot working, you put it into motion. It's now a project. You want to see what other people are doing, or they might want to see what you are doing because you've disseminated the project widely. They like what you're doing, they can see the results, and they want to do something similar to themselves. So this is upscaling, and also leads into diffusion, which is interaction and modification. So other people want to do the similar thing, get similar results. Their needs might not be exact, so they can modify the pilot and the final project you have running, and this is called diffusion. The social economy is primarily oriented around social missions. They share information. Unlike private companies, which tend to keep the information as much as they can to their own self. So rapid diffusion is really good or easily done with voluntary community sector, not-for-profit sectors, charities, etc. So don't try and keep it private, but share what you're doing, because you might get an interaction modification that actually improve what you're doing and also lead on to further developments further for the projects or products. So we've gone through the 5 stages on the framework. The final one is systemic change. This is when you know the project is really, really working. So these are innovations that radically change the fundamental systems on which we depend. The primary ones are healthcare, housing, learning, and training. There are a lot of elements in training, for example, because your target group for the same training could be different. You might be working with women only, women furthest from the labour market, NEETs, those young people not in education, employment or training, or it could be those with a disability. This could be in mental health. Also, it could be a physical disability or a neuro disability like ADHD, anything to do with training can link into healthcare, link into learning, link into housing. So these elements are not really separate, they are connected, and you have elements of each. Particularly when you're developing a project, you'll have more choices of where to go to get funding or to get support and resources. Systemic innovation is different from innovation in products and services. So innovation in products and services, that's quite an easy concept to understand, but systemic innovation involves changes in mindset as well as to economic flows, and it's a multi-sector approach. You need a lot of stakeholders on board. You need to change the way people think. So if you can change how they think about something, they will more likely mainstream it and make it part of their daily curriculum. So innovation is seeing what everybody else has seen, but thinking about it differently. And what we often find is if you can visualize the goal and focus on the goal, the detail will follow. So if you visualize a goal and you network and you talk about it, answers will come. People will come up with ideas that you may not have thought about. So keep going back to networking and communication. They are really the key elements that underpin anything you're going to do to create a new project. So just to summarize again, we have prompts, which is identifying the need. Proposals, that's about finding the answers to those needs. Prototypes, you're creating a pilot project. Sustaining, you have a business plan created and you know where you're going to go with the project once it's past the pilot project stage. So if you want to mainstream it, then you need to have your business plan in place if you want to get some sort of funding to make it continue, or know how you're going to be able to make it continue and the resources you're going to need. Scaling and diffusion, this is interaction and modification. So to upscale, we said, is a very easy concept. Diffusion is sharing it with others and listening to the feedback. Evaluation happens all the time. You do not stop evaluating your project or your social enterprise. You need to get feedback all the time with surveys, however else you want to get the evaluation. That way you can have better diffusion, better upscaling, which will lead into systemic change, changing mindsets, creating new training ideas. So these are the elements that people can take on board within their daily lives so they can do it as part of their daily routine. That is systemic change. Okay, what I have got alongside this, there are a couple of tools I've used, which is primarily to have 3 scenarios and asking a group to have a look at each scenario and go through all the different stages from 1 to 6 and cover each scenario and each stage within that scenario. So, for example, we could have in a hairdresser salon, they may have back problem issues, they have issues around skin, dermatitis. Have a look and see what that's the need. How can you satisfy the need for hairdressers, for example, to make their situation better? What sort of project could you create? Go through all these different stages until you find something that you can put forward to somebody. That is just one example. It could be around recycling computers. There are a lot of ideas out there, prompts for you to find, but I have some examples to use and I will attach them to this webinar. So thank you for listening. So my name is Graham Nichols. The project that this is working on is www.womineu.com. My website, makeadreampl.com. My email address, director@makeadreampl.com. You're more than welcome to email me and ask for more information. Thank you.